Welcome, host Cole Wilcox, joined as always by my co-host Jake Gordon and our producer Griffin Rudy. We're feeling good. We're feeling good. The Dodgers are 6-0, halfway through the season, done what we needed to do. Got a lot to talk about Saturday's game. Obviously, all three of us were in attendance. Had a little different view on the game, but I don't. We'll get into the show what we thought about it. I thought it was a great game. We'll see what the people in the live chat have to say. We'll see what Jake and Griffin have to say. So let's just get right into it.
10, 12, he's running over people. Oh, you hurt the walking.
In the corner again, and we jump up. Touchdown! Oh, God, a touchdown in the corner.
We just stepped on their face with a hobnailed boot and broke their nose. We just crushed their face.
Swift got running room. Swift by the defense. 40, 30. They won't catch him. Go, Swift, into the end zone. Touchdown! The freshman just ran it back to Philadelphia. 15, 10, 5. Touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. Dogs win it. We're headed to Atlanta. Near sideline, and it's intercepted. Intercepted. Keely Ringo at the 21. Off he goes. 40, 50, 45, 40, 35, 30. Near sideline. Breaks the tackle. 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. Georgia.
I know I'm asking a lot, you guys, but hunker it down one more time.
All right, welcome in, everybody. As always, if you are not following our Twitter account, please do so. Subscribe to the podcast, and as always, like this video. Boys, how we doing?
I'm feeling great, man. That was a good game. I lost my voice. I'm glad I have it back for tonight because, as you can tell, I'm still a little – I was yelling the whole time, man. I was ready to go. I wanted to go out there. I was saying before the game, like I kind of got a little fire a couple minutes before the game. I was like, I want to go out here and I want to embarrass these guys. And we ran for 300 yards on them, so I'd say that job
was pretty embarrassing. Yeah, I remember me and Griff were sitting right behind the family section, and I look up to my right, and I see Jake up there on the third down, letting it eat. So I figured you wouldn't have a voice today. But we challenged everybody at Sanford to bring the noise, bring the energy, and y'all did it. We were just talking about that before we started recording. I didn't count the number of false starts that we had, but there was quite a few. Auburn is definitely off their game. Sanford was loud. When I was rewatching the game, it sounded super loud on TV. The announcers were saying stuff about it. That was awesome. That's the environment we needed. It propelled the boys. A lot of units had their best performance, what I thought. And I assume y'all agree since we just talked about it, but good environment at Sanford on Saturday.
Yeah, we called it a get-right game, and that's exactly what it was. When you go out there and you can be physically dominant like that, and that's what we were saying on the show. We were saying we need to just go out there. We're bigger than them. We're faster than them. We're better coached. We need to just go out there and push them around. It's exactly what they did. It was beautiful to see.
Griff, you have a good time in Sanford?
Yeah, I had a great time. I'm feeling a little under the weather right now. I don't know what it's from. I don't think it's from yelling. I usually don't lose my voice and stuff, but yeah, I got a little bit of a cold. But happy to be in Sanford this Saturday. It was fun. It's always fun to beat up on one of your little brothers. We got a few of them, so.
What is the record that we came up with, Griff, when we were counting it up? Was it 19-5? Kirby Smart is against our biggest rivals.
Yeah, but if you take out the first year, it's 18-2. If you take out his first year,
that's an insane run, and you can say what you want.
Since 2017, 18-2 versus Florida, Tennessee, Georgia Tech, and Auburn. I think is what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can say what you want, and there's a lot of people who question the Kirby Smart hire at the time, and a lot of those are gone after the national championship, obviously. But if you'd have told the fan base that that's your record over a 5-year span against your biggest rivals, like that, you take that without hesitation. You don't even hear the name. Like, yes, they're in. I mean, that's all you can really ask for in college football. That's the biggest thing, man. Rivalries are what make the sport, and if you're owning your rivalries, life is good.
Y'all want to hear a fun stat? Well, it's not fun for Auburn, but it's pretty fun for me.
Yeah.
Auburn has not scored more than 10 points in Sanford Stadium since 2009.
Wow.
That's insane. What was the stat about the first quarterback pass thrown since 2009, I think, was that play? First pass.
Oh, the touchdown pass. Yeah, I saw that. It was since like 2006 or something like that.
That was 9. It was 9.
It was 9?
Yeah, it was the same year that Jake was talking about. The first touchdown pass thrown by a quarterback since 2009. Insane.
Yeah, because the other ones were like a receiver and a running back.
Yeah.
While we're on it too, I want to give some credit to Robbie Ashford. He didn't play fantastic, but man, he can move and he can get around. He's very slippery. He's a good runner when he gets outside the pocket. He made some solid throws. I mean, it was really just all about Georgia's defense for the most part. But hey, I got to say, man, Ashford looked pretty solid.
Yeah, for sure. He's a guy who you just kind of wonder why he wasn't starting from the get-go. Whether maybe we don't know a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes, but he is clearly a more talented guy. You can do a lot more with him. I mean, I'm not sure what TJ Finley's calling card is. I know he's got a good arm, but Ashford, I feel like you can do a lot more with.
100%.
But let's talk some big picture things before we really get into the nitty gritty. We're halfway through the season. Let's get a little pulse check from the squad. What are we feeling? Sitting 6-0. Our biggest game still in front of us. Obviously, we beat Oregon, which continues to look like a bigger win every single week. But we do have some big games coming up. We have some road tests, which we haven't really experienced yet. So, like I said, let's just get a check of emotions, how we feeling, where we at, what we think about the team so far.
I'm feeling good. Something I've been really impressed with early. We talked about Missouri last week, how they had like 2 yards outside of, the 2 big runs that they had. Auburn went 1.6 yards per carry last week with the team. 46 rushing yards on 29 attempts. When you're shutting down the run like that, good things are going to happen. Auburn did get some yards. I mean, they were having to throw for most of the game. That first quarter was a little shaky, kind of a little back and forth, but it was nice to see Georgia finally break them down, start scoring, putting the ball in the end zone. That was really what I wanted to see. I wanted us to see, us not being a dogfight, for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
So that was something I was really happy about. It makes me feel a lot better because after this Saturday, Lord knows if Tennessee beats Alabama, we're going to be hearing all about that game for the next 3 weeks.
Oh, God.
That's a good segue before Griffin gives his halfway thoughts. Griff, we're Tennessee haters on this pod, but me and Jake, we're way more close to the realist scale than you are. You've been a guy who said Tennessee's fraudulent. You've been a guy who said obviously they were going to lose LSU, game of the year. You went on a limb. That was a 2-week build-up for game of the year. Yeah. I want you to admit right now the Tennessee Vols are pretty good.
Man, I feel like I'm like taking like the walk of shame, like in Game of Thrones, and everybody's just in the streets chanting shame, shame, shame. Yeah, Tennessee's they're pretty good. I don't want to say it. I hate it. I hate it so much. They're still good. Well,
you got another
I
week,
want to say
man.
something
you got
about
another week,
Alabama this week.
If they get embarrassed by Alabama, you're clear. But you got another week.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I would like to see them get embarrassed by Alabama this week. I will never this is the one game a year that I really pull for Alabama. Like it really is.
The DGG podcast says, "Let's see after this week, then you can apologize." See, that's the thing for me. Even if Bama does beat Tennessee handily, that doesn't change what I think about Tennessee. I'm gonna tip my cap to them. In year 2 under Josh Heupel, I think a realistic goal for them is just beat the teams that they're probably more talented than. And LSU was a toss-up, one of those toss-up where talent might be equal, and they walked in there and they housed them. They should not beat Alabama. They should not beat us in terms of players on the field. But I do give a hats off to them because they are beating the teams they're supposed to beat. People kind of forget that they have struggled with some pretty mediocre teams at the beginning of this year. So it ain't like there's some world beaters. I'm not going to sit here and say there's some threat to us because I do not believe that at all. But if they go out and prove it this week, then you kind of have to start believing that. So I was giving you a hard time. I don't think Tennessee's some world beater, but they do deserve credit for going into LSU and wearing them out. Griff, give us a pulse check though. What are you feeling about the Dogs?
Hey man, I've the Dogs. I felt fine last week. Everyone else was, the world was ending and everything was falling to crap. But it's just, sometimes you hit bumps in the road, and it's how you come back from those that defines you really. And the Dogs came out this week, and the thing that everyone said was so bad last week, that was the major problem, that they looked the best out of anybody on the field. And so that's what it is. Heck
yeah. Over here we got Darth Jameis. We got a listener, Go Dogs from Dallas, Texas. Let's go. Represent that state, man. Represent that state with some real football.
There's a couple I liked in here. We were talking pulse check. We got a couple comments. Hunter, what's up, man? And then we got Jeremy saying, Red zone offense was tremendously better, and I do agree with that a lot. And I think it was a lot about running the ball and being able to run the ball. Because whenever, I mean, I don't care who you are. I don't care who you got a quarterback. If you have to throw in the red zone, unless you got 2010 Cam Newton back there, it's going to be difficult to score if there's no threat of a run game. And Nature Boy said too, he said Tank had 10 carries for 19 yards. That's what we said all week. I said that was the key to the game. Don't let Tank Bigsby beat you.
Yep. And I think the word that I would use going into the second half is impressed. I'm impressed with this team. And we talked a lot. We knew the talent. We knew what they could be. But all of our projections was kind of towards the end of the year. And the schedule kind of works out where obviously you had Oregon first. And if you get by that game, you had 5 games to really build up to what after this bye week is going to get real. You know, you have the Florida, you have the Kentucky, you have the Mississippi State, you have Tennessee. But so far, like there hasn't been a lot of youth poke out to me. Obviously, we've had some struggles and we've done some things that are pretty uncharacteristic. But a lot of that, in my opinion, fell on turnovers. And then obviously red zone offense, like stuff that is fixable. And then there hasn't been a lot of youth, especially on the defense where you play so many people. They've been awesome. You can't ask for a whole lot more from this defense after what they went through last year. So I would say impressed. And I think it's a good foundation. Obviously, we got Vandy coming up bye week, and then it's the real football cranks up, which is what you want. You want real football end of October and November. I'm excited for that.
I think that could be my biggest takeaway from the first half is this schedule is not going to be easy as we thought it was going to be at the beginning of the year. I agree with Brian. He says Mississippi State probably our toughest game. Going to Starkville, that's going to be a challenge because they can throw the ball. I said before the season I thought Mississippi State might be a little bit better than projected. I also had my doubts about them. I was kind of 50-50. But they've shown, man, they can throw on just about anybody, and that's going to be a big, big test for this team. If they can slow down that offense, I think they can slow down anybody.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, Mississippi State is more complete than people give them credit for. Like obviously they have Mike Leach, but the defense is solid. They can run the ball. Like that's a really, really good team who's looking like the second best team in the West. I'm not sure how they lost to LSU. Looking back at that game.
Yeah, I mean they just had a bad second half. Honestly, they controlled that game. They could very well be undefeated in the top 10 right now.
Mm-hmm.
I want to highlight this comment because I feel like this is kind of what me and Cole felt watching the game. First half was poopy dog water. Second half was better. And we were frustrated with the offense a little bit in the first half just because it felt so vanilla and slow. But I feel like that's just kind of the brand of football we came out and wanted to play on Saturday. Is just like, let's push them around a little bit, wear them down, and then in the second half, they're going to be so tired that they can't play with us anymore. And that's kind of what happened. And we just played some like old style, shove it down your throat football, you know? It was a little vanilla.
Yeah, that's what we needed to do. Mm-hmm. We needed to play our brand of football. We didn't need to start playing Auburn's game because if we started playing Auburn's game, Auburn can beat us at that. We've seen it before, especially with Gus Malzahn back in the day when Gus would start throwing, double reverse flea flickers and stuff like that. That's how he'd clip Alabama sometimes. He'd make Alabama play his game. And I know Gus isn't there anymore, but that's the type of thing.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, you can't play Auburn's brand of football because they can beat you at it.
He's on a real
your Wi-Fi's slightly jacked, so kind of keep it short when you go, unless it gets figured out.
You got it.
One of the things we said in the preview show was this was a chance for our offensive line to step up and dominate a good front seven. Auburn has a good front seven. They're very talented. They're very experienced, and they did. I mean, they absolutely wiped the floor with them. That's a good segue into what I wanted to start this off with when we get into the micro parts of the game. I sent out a tweet that was just asking, who do you think had the best performance of the game? As last week I said, what was the problem? I figured after a good game, we can talk about who had the best performance. I didn't get enough offensive line in the comments, I'll be honest. I want to start there. They deserve all the credit in the world. There was people calling for cereals last week. There was people talking about the O-line. This guy needs to go. This guy needs to play. They came out, they made a statement, and they put all worries aside because they played the game of their life. They absolutely got downhill. They're pushing people around. They're opening up holes. So that was a huge bounce-back game from our offensive line, and it proves we can win in different ways, which is why I'm so impressed with the first 6 games so far.
Yeah, it's a good defensive front. They were doing that again. Auburn still has plenty of talent on the defensive line. They probably always will. So that wasn't exactly – them just going out there and shoving around, Sanford or somebody like that.
Right.
They made a statement, and I got to say I was really impressed, especially with our running backs too. I mean, they were making some seriously impressive cuts. I've been preaching about Dejon Edwards. I love the way the kid plays. And Branson Robinson kind of had a little bit of a coming out game as well.
Yep. That was the next segue. People were saying the overwhelming majority answer was Edwards and Robinson. And that's not wrong. I mean, they're not wrong at all. Those guys, they showed something on Saturday. And that's why I like sitting in the end zone, that student section end zone. You can kind of see the holes open up. And you can see the play develop. And the way Edwards especially was setting up the holes and then bouncing to the right one, letting his offensive lineman work, it was special. And it was fun to watch. The dude is just comfortable with the football in his hands. He's one of those guys where you scout him and, you have the stopwatch out and you do a bunch of other stuff and he might not pop. Put him in pads, give him the ball in a field with 22 guys on it, and he's going to show out. And that's what he did this game. I thought he was awesome. And Branson Robinson looked like mini Nick Chubb on that run. Like, that's all I could think about from where I was sitting was when he bounced that, shed a few guys, lowered his shoulder. I was like, wow.
That was sick.
That brought a tear to my eyes. Yeah. That was an awesome play by them. But I think one guy we forgot about was Kenny. Like, I thought when Kenny runs the ball between the tackles, it's usually pretty good. Like, it usually is pretty freaking good. And he kind of got forgotten about in this game, but I thought he played a good game too as well. Hopefully Milton's good and it's just a minor injury and he's back soon. But luckily, after watching that game, we're more than capable of picking up his slack.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's something else I wanted to highlight too. With the way that Stetson has been throwing a little bit, been overthrowing guys. He did miss a few balls. I'm not trying to be negative. I kind of saw him sometimes after some plays. He'd be reaching over and kind of, you think his back might be a little tight or something. I don't know if that has any ground to it. I don't know if that's just what he does in the game to get loose, but I don't know. There may be some tightness in his back or his shoulder or something. That may be why he's sailing a couple throws. But I noticed that him standing back there and kind of, trying to get himself, situated.
It could be. I've seen some reports. I didn't really read much today on any of the articles to get some real confirmation.
That's what, Brooks just said. Kirby said he banged up his shoulder against Mizzou.
Yeah. And it's tough to throw the ball with a banged up shoulder. Like, I think that's pretty obvious.
Need that.
Yeah. There's just some very uncharacteristic stuff from Stet, in my opinion, the last couple of games where I remember a screen pass to Kenny where the ball just came out weird. Him and Kenny, the first 3 games were like, they were on the exact same page. Not even the same page. They were on the same word on the same page. Like, those guys just had it. And then against Missouri and then against Auburn a couple times, it just seemed like the ball wasn't coming out right to him. But, yeah, Stet's probably a little banged up. He definitely missed some deep shots that you got to hit, which and that happens. But when you get a guy that open, you need to hit him. He knows that. Everybody knows that, whatever. And if he does hit those, I don't think anybody has any complaints with the offense. Like, we've scored probably 55 points at that point. The one bone I had to pick was Stet, and he's one of the best that we've had do this in a while. So, it was kind of shocking to see. When we have a free play, don't overthrow the guy. Give him a chance. Worst case scenario is to overthrow. Just
take the interception.
That's perfectly fine. Just give him a shot. That's the only bone I had to pick. He's done it multiple times. It ain't like it's something that is worth worrying about because he did it on the biggest stage in college football. He did it in the national championship, gave AD a chance, and AD dunked on Kool-Aid. So he's willing to do it. It probably just came out a little hot.
I like what Lane said. He said those Jets weren't banged up. He was flying down the field. That touchdown run was awesome.
It was awesome.
That was sick. Awesome. He took off.
And like I said, from where we were sitting, he takes off, and I'm like, oh, that's a good game. But then I look up, and you can just kind of see the field like he's seeing it, and it's like, oh, there's nobody. All he's got to beat is that corner on the left side. And Ladd kind of clipped him, and that's all he needed. House call.
I'm glad you brought up Ladd because I want to talk about him too, man. He's a guy who's caught a lot of heat from a lot of people for no good reason. Big time get right game. We said he needed to bounce back. He did. He had 5 catches, had a couple good punt returns. But yeah, no, it was good to see him get a little bit back in rhythm, build a little confidence back up. He's got Vandy this week. He absolutely destroyed them last year, so hopefully that keeps up.
Yeah, those 2 punt returns I have in my notes. It's kind of like he got some swag back, and that means a lot. Like, he fumbled the first one, and I saw people on Twitter put Kyrus in. We need a new punt returner. Time for a change. If you make the switch from punt returner to a guy who's already lost some confidence, that could be detrimental. Like, you don't want to do that. You have faith in your guy. It's like a closer in a baseball game. Like, when he comes in the night, it's his game, win or lose. And That's where Kirby's at with Ladd, and he's earned that. Like, he has earned that confidence from the coaching staff. You don't take him out after one little fumble. And he comes back and he answers the call, and he has 2 big-time returns to get some momentum back for our offense that was kind of sputtering at the time. So, yeah, definitely hats off to Ladd. He bounced back in a big way. One of the other comments on the tweet of who had the best game, I had Logan Brinson play dominant up front. And I agree.
I agree too.
I thought the defensive line played incredible this game. They were just there was constant pressure. I mean, and Ashford's first read was just a bounce out of the pocket. So there wasn't a lot of sacks, and you might look at that and say, well, are they really getting pressure? It was like he was out instantly. And when you got a guy that was just under that much pressure, he's never going to be accurate for very long. And I thought that just everyone, 13-4, Logue, Brinson, all those guys were winning their matchups consistently. So definitely hats off to defensive line.
Yeah, with the exception of that last touchdown. Go ahead, Griff.
I was going to say Ashford was 13 for 38 passing. So, I mean, like, the pressure, like, it really showed, like, how just much it affected him in the passing game.
There's probably 8 or 9 throwaways alone. Like, complete throwaways. But there was just, there were a lot.
Yeah, and besides that busted play, I mean, you look at, how well Georgia was tackling on the perimeter, and that was really important to me. Mm-hmm. That was 62 of his yards. So, I mean, he ended up 62. Yeah, so he had 103 yards without that and no touchdowns. So, I mean, Georgia really bottled him up, and that's good to see, especially against a quarterback that can move around like that, because he was making some plays with his legs.
Here's one from Brian McPhail. Ashford's not looking downfield as soon as he started scrambling. There's a difference, though. Like, scrambling to extend a play where you can still look downfield is different. When you're just getting straight pressured out of the pocket and chase, you can't look that far downfield. Like you got guys. You got guys falling down on you. Exactly. So it was more of just the pressure was making him scramble. He wasn't trying to extend a play with his feet. He was being flushed out of the pocket and forced to scramble, which is different. And I didn't see near enough people in these comments talk about, and maybe we've just grown accustomed to it. Maybe it's just, hey, when we walk out in the field under Kirby Smart, we expect to have a dominant defensive performance. To me, that was one of the most dominating defensive performances we've had, including last year. It was an absolute clamp job. They couldn't move the ball. They, at no point in time, strung together first downs. And like we said, we gifted them 3 points on the step fumble. They didn't even get a first down on that. They just kicked it. And then they had the one big play where he missed a tackle.
196 yards without that total.
Yeah. You have a big play and a field goal that was gifted. That's it. They barely got across the 50. I don't know how many snaps they took in plus territory minus the fumble. It was an absolute masterclass on defense at all levels. JDJ, Smile, both played really well. Ryan Davis got in there and had some really, really good snaps.
Yes, he did.
Bear Alexander looked great, especially on third down. That dude can get off the ball as fast as anybody on our team. He can move. We've already mentioned Logan Brinson. Nolan Smith played well. Michael Williams was constantly in the backfield. I thought Lassiter was physical on the edge. Keeley had a good game. The safeties always play well. It was just a complete performance from the defense. Hats off to them. They had a great game plan and absolutely suffocated Auburn.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of, when I look at the box score, I know we talked about it, man, but I can't stop 7.5 yards a carry. You carry, I don't care who you're playing. If you carry the ball for 7.5 yards a carry, you're probably going to win. Yeah, for sure. Lane Smith says Starks is something special. I want to get better with experience. If you've listened to the show, you know what we think about Starks. It was on the first drive, I think, on second down on the first drive. They tried to throw it at his guy. Clamped. I'm talking zero window. He just had to overthrow it. That was the type of coverage that forced interceptions over the top. I remember turning to the guy beside me, and I'm like, dude, Starks is so good. Like, he just absolutely locks up on everyone. He is special. You're right. That dude is a phenom. From where I was standing, I thought he had that interception for sure. I guess it came out of at the end.
Yeah, it looked like he caught it.
When they said review, I was like, well, review? I thought he landed on his back. But then he did drop it a little bit. But he's a freak. He's just in the right place, man. And people keep going his way. And he might have the best ball skills of anybody on our defense. So they might need to go somewhere else. Motivated, dedicated. Says defensively, we are just young. We will improve. I don't know where we could have improved very much that game. I'm going to be honest. With the one play, a blown coverage and a missed tackle on a guy who doesn't start. And that's an older guy. Like, that's not even a young dude. I just, when I'm going back and watching the game, I guess I just didn't realize how dominant it was when I was at the game. There was nothing that Auburn could do. At any point in time, we've already mentioned Tank stats. We've mentioned Ashford stats. Like, they just could not move the ball at all.
That's kind of what I had the same feeling when I was watching. I kept, like, I went and looked, and I saw they only converted 5 third downs. And at the game, I thought it was way more than that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was all like just some scrambles. Like, that was it.
Probably 2 or 3 of them were Ashford, getting 7 yards and diving and after a busted pass play.
And yeah, we said Auburn's offense going in was a bad offense. It is, but you can only do what you can do in front of you. And they absolutely did what they were supposed to do against a bad offense and locked them down. Ashford scrambled for a few, but there was just that's an offense that did score 17 in the first half in LSU, which doesn't look as great now. But it's not like they were just incapable of scoring with Ashford. So I thought it was one of the best performances on defense that I've seen in a while.
One of the last notes I had to Oscar Delp's family was like a couple rows down for me, and he got in the game. He got a big catch, and they started jumping up and down, and everybody, all the parents around started freaking out. They were so happy, man. Kid's going to be a freak.
No doubt. He's
going to be awesome.
Really good. Somebody said that in the comments up here that Oscar Delp looked really good. Yeah, he's another guy. Like, you put the ball in his hands and put some pads on him, and he's just at home. Like, he was very comfortable catching every pass, getting open. He looked really, really good. Really, really good. It was one note is it was really good to have Javon Bullard back. That guy is a problem. He is pretty much good at all facets of the game and what he needs to be good at. He's physical. He's good in coverage. He's just got a nose for the ball. I think it was Cole Kublik that kind of broke down the games. He does it every week for all SEC teams. And he was talking about how dominant we were defensively. And he said 4 was active, 22 is the home run hitter. And he really is, man. Like, you see somebody dart up and make a play in the backfield, it's either him or Chris Smith usually. Like, those 2 guys come downhill at an elite pace, and they are very physical, both of them. So he definitely made a difference as soon as he stepped back on the field.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I noticed as well is, especially defensively, we got a comment. He said, converting pressures into sacks will be one of the few areas for improvement. I think that is something that's going to come with game reps as well. The secondary has been good. And a lot of these teams right now, we saw it with Oregon especially, not as much recently, but I mean, they're not going to look like Clemson last year. They're not going to drop back and let Georgia sack them 6 times because they know if they do that, the game is over. So that's why we've seen so many quick passes. We've seen so many, hey, if you feel the heat, just get out of the pocket and throw it away. They're not letting Georgia sack it, which is so awesome, by the way, the fact that, we command that type of respect. But yeah, no, you would like to see a couple more of those get home, especially with a running quarterback like Ashford. But he's a great athlete, and the pressure, the sacks are great. They're sexy in the box score. They're fun for the highlight reel, but the pressures really, really are the most important thing to me. But I do agree. I would like to see a few more just because of the negative plays.
Yeah, for sure. And like you said, I think that comes with some of the teams in the future. Like, you look at Tennessee, you look at Mississippi State. Like, those are some games we can rack up some sacks, and sacks are going to be key. Like, you can't just let Hendon Hooker and Will Rogers sit back there and pick you apart. So putting them on their back and at least hitting them, like at least just hit them when they throw the ball, get there quick enough where you can kind of lay the wood on them. That makes a big time difference. You kind of saw that in the Bama game with A&M. They didn't have a whole lot of sacks that game, but they were pressuring on every single play, like every play, and A&M just couldn't do anything because he's constantly running backwards. So, like what you said was right. Pressures are what is important, and if we continue to do that, the sacks are going to come.
Exactly. Yeah, and you look at a team like Tennessee or Mississippi State. Those are 2 teams where you look at, they're going to say, hey, our offense is just as up to par of this defense, so we're going to try to impose our will. And that might be where you see a couple more dropbacks and a couple more, hey, let's see if we can dial something up and see if our line can hold up. That's when they really are going to have to get home.
Yeah, that is a good point where these teams so far have not been confident enough to just say, hey, offense, go beat this defense. And what you just said, Tennessee and Mississippi State are going to think they can. Like, that is their MO. If they don't think they can, they're not going to win. So they're going to come out, they're going to try to line up, they're going to try to beat us doing what they do. We've made other teams alter what they do on offense at this point. Like, they've had to do something different to try to score on this defense because they're not just going to line it up. Tennessee, Mississippi State are going to do exactly what they've been doing to everybody else and just say, hey, best on best, come get it. That's where, like you said, that is where we're going to come out and we're going to rack up the sacks that we're looking for. But this is a good Harry Legg. Harry Legg says dogs QB pressure is among the nation's best. And I bet if you had a microphone in that defensive locker room, in that coaching staff, that's what they're most proud of. Like that. Sacks are great, and it looks good when you're getting drafted. Like, hey, you got 10.5 sacks. But when you're pressuring the quarterback at an elite rate, there's not much they can do. You just can't. You can't do much as a quarterback if you're constantly getting pressured.
Yeah. I just think it's so funny because we watched this game, and I guess it's just the standard now. But the defense was so good, and it's on paper, and when you rewatch it, it's one of the best games they had. But at the game, it was just kind of like, all right, yeah, we're playing good.
Yeah.
But when you really look at it, it's like, wow, we really went out there and dominated them on that.
Dominated. All right, let's talk about the offense as a whole real quick. And Griffin, you mentioned the first half being slow. What did you think was slow about it?
I don't know. I just felt like we couldn't really get anything going at first. I mean, did we start with 2 3-and-outs? Is that what it was?
Yes.
No,
I went 1 3-and-out and then a missed field goal.
I went back and watched though on the first 3-and-out, and it was like, oh, we were going to start the game with a freaking 3-and-out. So we run the ball, get about 2 yards, and then that screen to Brock, which is a very uncharacteristic Brock Bowers drop. You chalk that up to some just weird stuff going on in the
He's amazing, but he ain't perfect.
Right. That play was going for a first down and maybe more. That was drawn up well. He had the blocking. He had one guy to beat. So, that stuff stalls drives. I mean, you're not going to be good enough to consistently get over drops and being in 3rd and 8s. That's tough because when we completed the next pass, it was about 6 inches short of the sticks. And people were probably complaining, like, why don't we go for that set of tone? We punted on 2 4th and 1s because we knew they couldn't score on our defense. So why? I mean, we're going to score. I mean, if we really needed it, 7 points probably win that game, So
right.
Just punt the ball, make them go the full length of the field if they're going to score. And looking back now, it was the right play.
It was. But I was in the crowd at the time. I was, go for it.
Me
too.
For it. Me too.
Yeah.
100% me too. And I think even my dad mentioned this. He was upset with the offense when I got home. But I think we're grown so accustomed, and we've seen it. Like we have witnessed it in the Oregon and the South Carolina game where we were just running and gunning. Everyone's open. We're flinging the ball. We're flinging the rock tempo, flinging it. This game was as dominant on offense as we have been. You just mentioned it. We ran for 300 yards. That is physically.
We had 500 total yards in the game.
That is physically imposing your will on a team. And that we've shown we can do the running gun, and we've shown we can physically dominate. That is a complete team. That is a team that can score in any way possible. They had to establish that. Like, we hadn't seen that. And I think Brooks mentioned it somewhere up in this chat. Let me see if I can find it. Here it is. Offensive line figured something out in the 4th against Missouri, had 100 yards in the 4th quarter alone, and then rolled Auburn. Like I said, sometimes you got to reward the unit that has played so well. The offensive line flipped a switch, won us a game in Missouri. They go out and they're like, hey, we're going to run behind you guys. Keep it up. Like keep getting downhill. And that is huge. Like, that is going to make them block better in pass protection. That's going to do that is going to build their confidence. The running backs are feeling good. We're clicking on all cylinders going into the most important part of our season. And that's, while it may not be as flashy and it may not keep the crowd into it as much, like, that is what a good team does. When they're better than someone up front, is just physically impose their will on them.
Do you hit the nail on the head? Because this is something I wanted to say too. And, it's sexy to go out there and throw the ball 45 times for 5 touchdowns. And it works a lot of the time, but sometimes that will let you down. And you have to be able to run the ball. Running the ball is a mentality thing. Because I promise, when you're giving up 7.5 yards a carry, you are wearing down those other guys. They want to quit. They do not want to play if they're just getting pushed off the line every time. It's a mentality thing, and it really makes a huge difference that I think a lot of people don't understand.
Yeah. And I think – go ahead, Griff.
I was going to say, too, like, when you're getting pushed off the line up 7 yards a rush, like, that beats you down mentally. You're like, we can't stop these guys. There's nothing we can, like, for it. Like, they're literally pushing you downfield. And, like, that's just a mental blockage there, too.
I think one thing to think about is like 2017 offense, where games would be kind of close a lot of times going in. Not really close, but we're up like 2 scores. It doesn't feel like we're dominating. By the time you get to the fourth quarter, that other team is so worn down, you can do whatever you want. And that's what I feel like happened in this Auburn game. And while, you're going to have people on Twitter, Georgia's only up 14-0 on Auburn at halftime. That 14-0 is a lot bigger lead than it looks like on the scoreboard, because they're not going to be able to stop us for 15 minutes in the fourth quarter. Like, there's a reason the game is 4 quarters long. If you have a 20-point lead going in the fourth and you're Georgia and a team that you're better than and you've physically whipped for 3 quarters, that fourth quarter is going to be an absolute coast into the finish line, because you've got
when the fun starts.
Right. Yeah. The Kirby Smart Death March. That's what I've labeled it a long time ago, and it's awesome. Like, once we get to the fourth, we did it against Bama. And if we can do it against Bama, we can do it against any team in the country. Like, we wore them down for 3 quarters. It was a close game. We did what we needed to do to get the lead, and then we just straight up marched it down their throat in the fourth quarter of the national championship. That is what Kirby Smart loves to do. It's a mentality. It's a mindset. That's why they condition all year in the summer. It's why they do what they do. And when it gets to that point, the game is over. And when he has a lead, how often has he blown a lead? Like, hardly ever.
Yeah. I like the comment Marion made too about depth, is that like having that depth is so important, especially when you talk about Kendall Milton goes down. All right, well, Branson Robinson steps up and carries a rock for almost 100 yards. I mean, that's just, and you can rotate guys on the offensive line, on the defensive line. And you not only do you get to ensure that everybody's fresh, but you get a lot of guys that get to play. And the more experience they get, the more snaps they get. You can't replicate those game snaps, and those are very important too.
100%. 100%.
Yeah. And I'll say, obviously, we're all fans, and I'm like the homer of homers. So, like, when I go out and, it like looks slow and, it's emotional too. Like, I feel like that's probably most of where that came from. But, it's emotional. And like you said, like when we watch them torch Auburn, like in the air and all that stuff, it's hard to sit back and just like watch us run the ball, because it is more sexy to like have 500 yards passing and all that stuff. And, but like looking back on it after rewatching it, you're like, man, it wasn't nearly as bad as I was pissed off about, like in the States.
No doubt. And Griff, you saw me in the game. I got pissed at one point, mostly because I had Georgia and I needed the points. But
yeah,
that's what was really pissing me off. But I would say, and this goes for all fans, like when you want to tweet something, if you give it like 5 minutes, you probably think completely differently. If you give it a day, I promise you think differently. Because in the game, it is such an emotional roller coaster, and you're so invested emotionally that, like, I don't know, you just want everything to be perfect. Especially coming off 2 games where all we've heard is how bad we've struggled, this, that, whatever, You come into this game and you're like, I want this to be perfect. I want us to hit on all cylinders. I want us to get back. I don't want anybody to say a freaking word. And for the first half, you're like, okay, like they haven't got close to scoring. We only had 14 points. But that 14 points turned into 14 more in the last quarter because of how we did it. And just the constant physical abuse we put on Auburn. It took a toll on them. And I think Marion Campbell mentioned that. Like, she said, yeah, we must outcondition just about everybody, that and depth. The depth is what is key, because not only are we out physical and out conditioning these teams, we have the deepest team in the country. Like, there's only like maybe 3 teams, Ohio State, Alabama, Clemson, maybe, that have the talent depth that we have, where we can roll guys in when guys do get tired. They have to keep their dudes out there because they're just not as talented as us. And that's just how you wear them down. Like, depth in football is such a big deal that people don't realize. Like, I think that's what's going to hurt Tennessee on Saturday. Personally.
Now, here's something else that I have to talk about. As our resident special teams guy, as our defense man, Brett Thorson needs to win Special Teams Player of the Week. Listen to this. First punt, down to the 15. Second punt, down at the 6. Third punt, down at the 14. Wow. Last punt, down at the 9. And then there was one more down at the 8. He was pinning them all game. It was incredible. Brett Thorson had a fantastic game. That's why special teams are so important too. It's hard to get something going when you're backed up like that. And he was kicking it. Perfect punts all day.
Punting sucks, but it can be a weapon.
It really can.
Oh, it
and
is.
Speaking of it, did I not say this on Thursday too with Pod Lesney? I was like, he will miss some kicks that just turn out to be inconsequential.
It
He
didn't
goes out there
matter.
and hooks the first one, and it didn't end up mattering.
What I will say about that kick, though, somebody broke free. Like, it looked like he was trying to kick it around the guy that came in off the left
He
edge.
definitely was.
He came flying in, and it looked like
I'm surprised he got it off, to be honest.
Yeah, I thought it was blocked for sure.
That game was tied 14-14, and we needed a 65-yarder to win it, though. He would have
He's
absolutely drilled it.
He would have nailed it.
I'm glad you mentioned that about Thorson, because I did not really even notice how good he was punting. Probably because I was just pissed off when we were punting the ball and I was sitting down with my hands in my head, like just acting like an idiot. But that you mentioned how much of a weapon it is. I think we noticed that last year with Camarda. When our offense was sputtering and maybe it was in a close game, Camarda would bomb one and just absolutely flip the field. Like, there was never a field position battle with us because we just always won it. Because even if we were on the 30 and we needed to flip the field, Camarda would do it. So,
and
I think
our defense. I was going to say our defense is really, really good, but it helps a lot when you can flip the field like that. And those guys, they don't have a short field to defend.
It don't matter how good your defense is. If you're giving the ball in plus territory like we did, they're going to score points unless you force a turnover. Like, they can't just consistently get turnovers like that. Like, you give them a chance, and they're not. How many? We could probably count on one hand. Let's just take the Alabama games out because the SEC championship, they got out of hand. We can probably count on one hand over the last 2 years how many teams have lined up, let's say, a touchback at the 25 and marched down the field and scored a touchdown. It just doesn't happen. Yeah, the first drive of the game.
Yeah.
They also, oh my God, they blew. I still replay that one play in my head. They had a busted coverage and hooker overthrew. I think it was Jabari Small, maybe. But yeah, no. And another thing too, you talk about when guys are backed up, like we were all in the end zone right there. When they were back on our side of the field, I promise it was a lot. It was a lot.
Yeah, for sure. That is a weapon, the defense weapon coming out. Any other notes specifically on any players that y'all have?
I don't think so. I was overall very pleased. I was definitely not mad when we left because we absolutely crushed them, and we were all there till pretty much the end of the fourth quarter. I think I may have left before the last drive. But other than that, no, I was really pleased, and especially watching it back the second time. I think when you're at the game, there's just so much more emotion that you don't realize. Somebody stuffed somebody for a 2-yard loss, and you just hey, there you go. But that's something you see when you actually watch the game back.
Let's talk about.
I was gonna say, well, before we move on, I was going to say Ryan Davis got a lot of playing time on Saturday, and he played well. Yeah, but did Small Mondin not play on Saturday?
I don't think Tresman did.
Because it didn't seem like either of them did. I think that's why he got so much playing time. But I didn't really notice it until I was watching it back.
I don't see Smile on the box, but I know Tresman was out. I think he got banged up against Missouri. I know Smile was banged up too. That's another thing with this bye week coming up, man, and have Vandy coming to town. It would be really nice to be able to do what we did to Vandy last year and get a little rest and relaxation for everybody. Take a week off before Jacksonville. You get AD Mitchell back. You get Jalen Carter back. You hopefully get Kendall Milton back and get help as we do come down this stretch.
Yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. Let's relate with the people here for a little bit. What was
Anthony said Mondin and Marshall didn't play. Yeah, I knew I didn't see Tresman, but yeah, Smile was out too.
Let's relate to the crowd a little bit. Let's talk about the build up to the game. What we were doing on Friday night and what we were doing Saturday tailgate action.
Well, Friday we had some friends in town. We had a couple people stay with us. That's how it always, Auburn, Tennessee. That's how it always goes. Friday we all went out. We were at Bar South for a little bit. Shout out to my guy Cade. Always taking care of us over there. And
we had the Bar South back call out on Friday night. Jake put it out.
Me and Cole weren't going to go.
Call.
Yeah,
we weren't going to go. And we saw it, and we had to.
Yeah, I had been. We went to lunch at Porterhouse, and I was kind of feeling bad because Thursday's my big night usually. And so I finally had a vodka water at 2 at Porterhouse. I got feeling a little better. Then we moved over to Paloma. And somebody ordered a round of Jaeger shots, and then it was finally like, hair of the dog that bit me, I'm back. And we went to South straight from Paloma, and then I think it ended up being kind of an early night because I knew people.
It was, yeah. You dipped out about 9:30.
Well, I knew people were going to start coming out too, and I was already like,
we got packed. We went to one more place after Bar South. We went to All Good, and it was They didn't have any of the football games on. They had the freaking Mets on. Nobody wants to watch the Mets. And me and Griff, like, we had some action on. What was the game, Griff?
Colorado State, Nevada.
Yeah, so we were like,
Cole took the opposite side of that game to me, and he lost. So,
well, I had Houston, and I just chalked it up as a loss, and then because they were down like 17-7, and then I look up and they had won 33-32, so that was nice.
Here's how Griff does. I put him on the Rutgers winner. He wanted Indiana. Nebraska. His words were, "I think Nebraska's going to kill him," even though they hadn't killed anybody in 20 years. I said, "All right, Rutgers. You have to bet Rutgers wins." I tried to tell him SMU stinks. He bet SMU, UCF money line, whatever. But he wants to talk about.
I tried to put you on Colorado State. I tried to tell you to take them, and you didn't.
And that's why I didn't. You've had a rough go.
That was a winner. I tried to put you on Houston too.
Yeah, that was definitely the right play.
Saturday we woke up, had a little brunch, got things started, and we started watching a lot of those 12 o'clock games. Just got out of hand. Texas, Oklahoma, my God, that was a bloodbath. LSU, Tennessee wasn't much to see, and so I think we headed to right up Lumpkin, probably about 1:30, and I was like, we got to get to the stadium at probably like 2:30, 2:45, or we're not gonna get a seat. And so we probably left the tailgate about 2:30. Made a couple to go drinks, and went and got our seats.
Love it.
Hunter, appreciate the 10, man. He said, "How many limes were thrown at heads? Not enough." We saw some Auburn fans in South, and every time they walked by, we said, "Go Dogs." Most of them just wouldn't say anything. Oh. I do like the one guy. The one guy was quick with it. He whipped around and just wore down, walked right back off. I was like, all right, I got you, man. I got you.
Yeah. Yep.
But then we got into the conversation of like, what does that really mean? Like what?
Yeah, I know. Wore down. Okay.
So we don't have to resort to that stuff because we actually win the games. They just every time they come in and say, everybody barks at me. That's all they ever say because they don't win.
Yeah. And the funniest part about the barking is when other fans complain about it, they think we care. They think at all we care about people thinking that it's uncool to bark. We embrace barking at Athens. I promise you. The more you complain about it, the worse we're going to get. That's just how it is.
Also, they make it out like people like get in their faces and like, oh, like I didn't see that a single time Saturday. Like I think they just make those. I think that's part of their fanfic or something. They just make that up.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I had a tailgate before the game on Saturday. It was a nice one. It was one of the South Georgia tailgates. You talk about some food, dude. They had so much food they didn't even know what to do with. I ate so good. It was one of the best I've eaten before a game in a long time. I mean, they had some tuna this guy had just freshly caught. He brought it. They went offshore, caught tuna, brought it, grilled it up. They had some meat sticks. They had some deer jerky. They had some buffalo chicken dip. I mean, they had everything you could possibly want. And I wore it out. Griff was absolutely raging about the LSU-Tennessee game about that time. I had to step away from him. He was killing the vibes on my first UJ game day in 2 years. But man, it was just nice to be back in Athens. It was awesome. That place is the best. You can't beat a college game day in Athens. I'd put it up against anyone in the country.
Bay Red, what's up, man? Yeah, dude. It was really because we talked about it. We had Samford, we had Kent State. Even though there wasn't that fall crisp in the air that I was talking about, it ended up being about 80 degrees. It was still, you could definitely tell the energy was there. Auburn fans had a pretty good showing. They had a decent amount of folks there. They stayed to the end. I said it on Twitter. I gave them the props. I said, hey, you guys got dragged up and down the field, and I saw most of y'all stayed there till the end. I got to give you credit for that.
Yeah, I mean, they were just going to go straight downtown afterwards. They were going to go check out the campus that they could have got into if they had a little bit higher GPA or slightly higher work ethic.
Little better ACT.
We said that in Bar South, man. This has to be one of Auburn's like favorite / I don't know what the word would be for this, emotional weekends, because they just get to know what could have been. If they could have gotten the first place they applied, that would have been where they were spending their college years. So they get to see it at least once every 2 years. If they come back for a basketball game or something, they get to see it then. But shout out to those guys. Hope you're doing fine at Auburn. Stuff's going really well over there.
So
speaking
Brian,
of basketball.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, you go, Jake. You got.
My bad. You cut a little bit. Brian, he said, like to see more quality games at home. I was so upset when that Oklahoma home and home got canceled. Georgia's schedule's so easy. Like, dude, I wanted to play Oklahoma. I wanted them to come to Athens. That would be so much fun.
Yeah, awesome. That would have been awesome. Yeah.
We got Ole Miss at home next year, though. That'll be a good one.
For sure. For sure. Ole Miss will be nasty. Kentucky's always decent. Who else we got at home next year?
I guess it'll be because this year South Carolina will be here.
Yeah. The home slate
Missouri will be here. Yeah, we'll have a couple conference. I guess Ole Miss is our out of conference game.
Tennessee's lined up to be one of the biggest home games in years, though. Like that's for the SEC East against the teams.
If they win Saturday.
Oh, if they win Saturday, it will be the biggest home game we've had in how long? Like,
probably since Notre Dame.
Yeah, and that was just big because they're a national brand. But this is for all the marbles here.
Like big
probably that Alabama game when it was raining and. Yeah, we don't talk about that one.
Hopefully it ends up better than that if the situation does arise.
You ain't kidding.
Griff, what were you going to say about basketball?
Oh, yeah. Speaking of basketball, Stegmania on Friday. It looks like Mike White got a pretty good showing. I'm hyped for it, dude. I can't wait for – I always have watched Georgia basketball, and it's fun to watch.
That's going to be a good plug. We're going to start ramping up basketball.
Yes.
We obviously we love football.
Like probably bye week type stuff.
Yeah,
we're going to talk about
perfect.
it.
Bye week we'll do our basketball primer. That's perfect.
I will say that there's a lot of people in the athletic department. I will never say who, but Tom Crean was not welcomed anymore in the athletic department. He burned a lot of bridges. There was just some things that was not agreed upon between him and some others. But apparently Mike White is the guy everyone loves and I talked to this week when I was working out there. He set a good culture. I saw he's hired a new strength and conditioning guy in basketball, and he was really cool. I met him this week, and the guys were in there getting after it. While I was in there, they were coming in, they were getting after it, and so it's looking like the buy-in's a little bit better than it has been in past years, and there's some talent on the roster, so it's going to be exciting. I think they can make a little bit of noise this year.
Speaking of Auburn, you know what Mike needs to do, and I hate to borrow from them. I don't even know if I'd call it borrowing from them. When Bruce Pearl was in the crowd at the Auburn game, going tarps off, going crazy with all the students, as much as I hate it, that was kind of cool, and it's kind of endearing, especially if you're a student. You want to talk about getting people to go to basketball games? Come hang with the people, man. I feel like that would be huge for him.
Mark Fox used to do that. He used to dress up with the Spike Squad and go crazy.
That's sick. Like, I love it.
I like Mark Fox, but Bruce Pearl's different, guys. Like that. People wanted to be sacrilegious at the time and be like, oh, we don't want Bruce Pearl. He's a cheater. I don't care. Bruce Pearl will build your basketball program into a top in the country. That he will do it. He's proved it everywhere.
I wouldn't say Mark Fox is better. I'd say Mark Fox did that.
I hate Bruce Pearl so much because he was at Tennessee and Auburn. It's like, oh my God. But
Awful.
as a guy, I'm kind of like, yeah, he's kind of, I kind of like him. He's kind of a scumbag. I don't know. I think he's a good villain for college basketball.
No doubt. Basketball's kind of the sport where my X's and O's will shine when we start talking about basketball. That's the sport I understand the best. That what he does is incredible. And he knows what he's doing. He can relate with people. He speaks the language. He speaks that recruiting language. He just knows how to get it done. And he seems genuine. Like his players love him. So I respect Bruce Pearl, but I do hate that program. Yeah, for sure.
Oh, and I said this before the game. So since Scoot Henderson, who has been going absolutely nuts, by the way, in these NBA scrimmages, since he never officially chose between Georgia and Auburn, since we won this game, I am claiming Scoot Henderson when he goes to the NBA.
There we go. I love it. I hate that new trend of the G League where people they're going to the G League and they put you in their picks anyway. What was that kid from Arizona that we were recruiting? He's like a 6'10" forward. And it was like obvious he was going to the G League, but he still had us in his top three, us in Florida State. God, that sucked. Don't do that. Just go to the G League. Which I have my own opinions about the G League. But we appreciate you guys listening. Like we said at the beginning, if you can subscribe to the pod, even if you're going to listen to it on here, we would much appreciate it. Leave us a comment. Leave us a star rating. Follow us on Twitter. That's where the content comes out weekly. We'll get the boys fired up. And like this podcast or like this video on YouTube. We appreciate you guys. Appreciate you guys. Y'all are the best. Dog Nation is the best community in the world. So shout out you guys.
Make sure y'all stick around. Brooks is doing film breakdown. He's doing every single one of Stetson's throws from Saturday. So that will be very interesting. Honestly, I'm probably going to sit on here and watch it. I don't have anything else to do tonight. And no, I am actually going to watch it. I'm gonna have it. Best with homering. Yes, exactly. That's what made me laugh. Stick around for Brooks's film review. He's breaking down all 32 of Stetson's throws. I'm kind of a little more interested because, like I said, we were all at the game, and it's hard to get that type of football viewing experience from the game as much as we love going. So y'all stick around.
Yeah, and we'll be back on Thursday with a little Vanderbilt preview. We'll probably mix in some other things because nobody wants to hear us talk about the freaking Vanderbilt game for 30 minutes.
Hey, over 2.5 wins. That's all I need.
Yeah, congrats, Vandy. Congrats. You beat Ole Miss for one half. Hang the freaking banner.
They did.
Yeah, for real.
All right, boys. Let's have a good week. Enjoy the victory. And before I go, I will say this. Freaking embrace being number one. Don't be a Bama fan. Don't be a beta. Don't pull y'all are better than us this year. And then when they win, they're all loud. Screw that. We're number one. We're the best. Own it. And talk your stick because you never know how long it's going to last. Have a good week. Go Dogs.